Lucky Land Casino, asking people, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
Lucky? In line at the deli, I guess?
Aha, in my dentist's office. More than once, actually.
Do I have to say?
Yes, you do.
In the car before my kids' PTA meeting.
Really?
Yes.
Excuse me, what's the weirdest place you've gotten lucky?
I never win and tell.
Well, there you have it. You can get lucky anywhere, playing at LuckyLandSlots.com. Play for free right now. Are you feeling lucky? No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18 plus. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome to Handle with Care, Breast Cancer and Beyond. Now, your host, Carrie Madrid.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Handle with Care, Breast Cancer and Beyond. Again, I'm not Carrie Madrid. I am Chris Donovan, the producer on the show, but this is the second half of the Diane Callahan interview that I sat in with her on. Here it is. I'm not even going to talk anymore. Just get right back into the Diane Callahan interview, and thank you for listening.
This show was supposed to be about your book and everything else. We're going to get to that. But let's go back to your diagnosis. So you had your first one. You get through that. Then you're diagnosed again. When?
So I said, do you know what you're doing? I mean, right?
It's a valid question.
Patient, advocating for myself.
Yeah.
Do you know what you're doing? Turns out he'd only been doing this for 6 months, right? I didn't know it at the time, but he was like, yes, I do. I sure do.
Confidence. We like that.
And I said, are you ready to be aggressive? Because I don't have time for this.
Yeah.
We got to get this done.
Yeah.
He said, I sure am. All your tests say you are too. And then, right? And then I said, the most important thing is, do you actually care if I live or die?
Wow.
Because that other oncologist freaked me out kind of.
Yeah.
I was like, is that how it is? It just doesn't matter? And he looked me straight in the eye and he goes, I do. And he has for 12 years.
Yeah.
And so,
and we get in relationships with our oncologists.
Yes.
I'm in love with my oncologist.
I am too. If I could have babies, we would be having some.
Well, I wouldn't go that far, but yeah.
Well, I went into, at 42, I went into menopause right away. In fact, I was so sick that we didn't even have the conversation like, do you want to save your eggs and freeze them for later?
Yeah.
There was no conversation.
There
it was
was
like,
no,
you're done. So with this aggressive thing, he said that we should do the chemo and go straight into the autologous stem cell transplant, which is where they use your own cells. Once you get clean, then they can harvest your cells, and that's the most aggressive thing.
Clean from the chemo.
Yes. Let's
clarify that.
Yeah. From my drug abuse. No, just kidding. I was on a lot of drugs.
Chemo.
But what happened was, I'd been out of work from the school district. In fact, the last month I didn't have any more sick time. I had like 5 months of sick time and vacation. All of my colleagues donated days.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
So I was starting to freak out because I'm like, I'm a single woman. I mean, I have this man who apparently is not running, but he's not paying my bills,
Right.
I have rent. I have a life. And so I was like, I talked to Dr. Farrell and I said, hey, would it be dangerous if we didn't do the transplant right now? And he said, no, you're in a strong remission. And he said, we could keep it in our back pocket just in case. Mm-hmm. And I know people who had the same exact treatment as me, same diagnosis, who to this day have not relapsed. They just one and done, right?
Right.
So turns out I got 4 years of before I relapsed again, which is twice as long as my doctor said he thought.
When you relapsed, was it the same type of symptoms?
No, it was different. So lymphoma it's in your bone marrow usually, and also in your lymph nodes, right? Mm-hmm. So you have lymph nodes basically, from your head to your groin. So I was in New York City for a meeting with LLS, and I was in the shower, and I felt a lump in my middle thigh. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what the F is that? And so I got home.
And we're so hypersensitive to anything.
I know. It's like, I'm going to die. Yeah. I'm dead.
Yeah.
So I get home.
She went all the way there.
Yeah, she
immediately.
Right? And so we did a biopsy. And the funny thing was, that biopsy, they just did a local, to pull that thing out. But it took the doctor like 2 hours when he said it was going to take like half an hour because he's like chopping away inside my leg trying to get it out. And he finally pulls it
Look
out.
at Chris's face right now.
Was it just that big, or was it just entangled?
It was entangled,
Okay.
and it was it was bigger than he thought. It was like like that, like my thumb, a little bit more than my thumb.
Okay.
And what happened was when he finally pulled it out, he kind of went woo, like
oh shit.
He was pulling so hard. Yeah, he was pulling so hard, his arm went up, and I was like, "What was that?" And so I said, "Look, I need you." I said, "Is that what you thought it was?" Because they thought it was going to be a lipoma, a fatty
tumor,
just nothing that's dangerous,
right?
And that's what they all said, right? And I said, "Is that what you thought?" And he's like, "No." I said, "Okay, you need to give it to me straight. We'd been talking this whole time. I need to know." He said, "That's not a lymph node. It's a tumor. It's your lymphoma. It's back, and you're in a little bit of trouble." Once again, dropping of the F-bomb.
Oh, yeah.
So,
yeah.
So then,
So 4 years from the original.
4 years.
So and then are you able, I know like with breast cancer, when it comes back, you're not, once you've had chemo, there's only so much chemo you can have.
Especially when you have the hardcore.
Right.
Yeah.
So what happened?
So I started prepping for the autologous transplant, which is gnarly chemo, the worst chemo I've ever
worse
had.
than what you had?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Because you had to do it inpatient. So it was like 3 or 4 days in the hospital. And it didn't really start to, like kick in until like the day you got home. And for me, I was so sick, but I wasn't, like when you have the flu, you throw up, you feel better.
Right.
So I'm laying there thinking, just let me throw up. I'll be better. It'll be fine. I've done this. I got it.
But that's not what happened.
But no. And so you just lay there in misery. And I'm like, Jesus. I mean, I was praying, Jesus, please help me.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening here. So I had to do that through December. So this was like October, November, December, 3 months of that every 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Oh my God. And so I'm working this whole time still for the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society.
Of course you are.
And so then you get to go harvest your cells, which is just a terrible word, isn't it?
Yeah, you hear that, but what does that really mean?
So here's what happens. This is what's so cool though. Okay. So stem cells are little baby cells.
Yeah.
So it's just like you're giving blood. You're hooked up to both arms are hooked up. And they take your blood out and they have like this centrifuge. The stem cells are heavier than the red or the white or the platelet.
They spin it.
So they spin, they drop down, and then they go and put all the other blood products back in your arm.
Okay.
So you have to harvest like millions. I can't remember the numbers because it's craziness. Yeah. And so typically it takes like more than 1 day. Some people harvest it for like 7 or 8 days just to get enough to do a transplant. So, and they don't know how much you harvested until the next morning when you go in and get hooked back up.
Got it.
So for me, there was this weird thing going on where I had to have one of my arms up and kind of lay on my side to get the blood to flow. So I had to lay there like this with my arm up and on this side for like 6 hours harvesting. I was like, this sucks.
She had her right arm up to like Chuck's height.
Yes.
And her left arm down to a little below her waist, and she was leaning to the left.
And I'm like laying over, and I'm like, okay.
You're like, is there a massage therapist somewhere around here for my shoulders?
Do I need to do the splits? I don't even know, right?
That's how Big Bird looked inside the suit.
Yeah, right?
So then I went back the next day, and they got me hooked up, and they got me started. Turns out I harvested enough on the first day. So I was very glad. And so then they have your cells, and they freeze them with some preservatives in it. And then I went into, this is when I became a City of Hope family member, right? I mean, you're family when you go to City of Hope. Now, in addition to that transplant, I was part of a clinical trial and the doctor of the clinical trial, he looked like the love child between Benjamin Franklin and Doc from Back to the Future. He had the long kind of stringy, curly gray.
Scientist.
Mad scientist, right? So you have to go in and get an initial dose to see if your body can handle it.
Okay.
And then you would go get the big dose. So we're in there, Chuck and I are in there, and this doctor, like a mad scientist, turns around with this giant needle. And he's like, you know how much this costs? And we're like, no. And he's like, this is like $40,000, just this right here, this test. And then he starts to put it in the needle's so long because he can't touch it because it's a radioimmunotherapy they used to use called Zevalin. I don't even think it's in play anymore. So he's putting it in. It's burning, you know. He looks at Chuck and he's like, hey, what do you drive? And I'm like, you dudes are really do you need a beer? You're really having this conversation right
like,
here?
I'm trying to live here.
Yeah, and the tears are coming out because it's burning. And I'm like, is it supposed to burn that much? Is my arm falling off? So Chuck says, I have a Durango. And he goes, is it one with like the way back and, the 3 rows? Chuck's like, yeah. And he goes, good, because she's going to have to ride home in the back because she's going to be just a little bit radioactive.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh. Do you have any superpowers?
I didn't.
Did you glow?
A little.
So when I had radiation, I had 5 weeks of radiation. I swore I was glowing by the end.
Yeah.
Crazy.
They said, I mean, I wasn't radioactive enough to like heat up a lean cuisine or anything. But they were like, you have to stay away from children. Your pets need to be in a different room. I had to sleep in a different room.
Yeah. Double flush when you pee.
Oh my God, everything. Yeah, the whole.
Yeah.
And I was like, I didn't know any of this until it's already going in. So I'm like, I'm radioactive.
Oh.
So that had to kind of make its way through my system, which pushed my transplant back about a month.
Okay.
And then you go in, and the crazy thing is, it sounds like a transplant. I mean, it sounds like it's stat, and there's doctors everywhere, and the big lights, and it's nothing. It's an infusion of a little package. This like is about the size of a piece of toast.
That saves your life.
That saved my life. But the worst part was, so you're in there, and they've filled you with extra chemo to kill any little living cancer cell. So you're sick as a dog to start with. Then they infuse this, but because it has preservatives in it, it tastes terrible. And so they suggest that you suck on a hard candy. And so I'm a dumbass. I brought Werther's butterscotch candies.
Oh.
And what this smells and tastes like is garlic.
Chocolate and garlic-ish?
Yes.
Oh.
And so I'm like,
garlic.
as it's coming in, I'm like, this is awful.
Should have got like a Jolly Rancher.
Yeah, they're like, you don't have a mint? And I'm like, I have Werther's. That's gross.
So the transplant took.
No, not really.
No.
It did for a very short time. So that was in February. Mm-hmm. Something really cool happened on Valentine's Day. I was in there for Valentine's Day, and people from across the country sent me Valentines at City of Hope.
Aww.
Teachers had their whole class make Valentines.
That's awesome.
That's sweet.
Sunday school teacher. I mean, Chuck took a picture of me in the bed, and it was like 2 feet worth of a
awesome.
mountain of Valentines.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
So I get out, and I'm trying to recover, still working. And I actually was on my laptop while they were starting the infusion until I started barfing.
Chemo, yeah,
right.
You know what? It keeps your mind going too.
Yeah.
Not only does it help you pay your bills, but it keeps
you purpose.
It gives you some purpose. It keeps your mind going, and
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah. So
you gotta stay occupied.
I get home, and I'm recuperating. It's rough, the exhaustion factor.
Right.
And it wasn't. So that's February. By summer, another big old lump in my leg.
And your other leg? Mm-hmm. Wow.
Mm-hmm. So
how do you react to that?
Well, no, not well, actually.
Yeah.
The problem for me was, so when I go in, so we had this cancer going away party the night before I went in for my autologous transplant. Mm-hmm. I was cock of the walk, right? I'm like, I'm just going to get this little thing done, and I'm going to work all the way through it, and I'll be back. It's all good, no problem. You're scared of me, cancer.
Right.
Well, having it fail so quickly, that's one hard hit. But having worked at the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, I've been to the funerals. I've made friends with families whose loved one didn't make it through the transplant.
Right.
Because the statistic is about 25 to 30% of donor transplant patients don't make it out of the hospital. So when it came back, I was like, I might be going to die. I mean, it's possible. I never thought of it before.
It's one of those situations where you know too much.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's like a double-edged sword. Like, you want the information. Other people think that they want all the information, but then when we've actually worked, like I worked in a chemo clinic.
Oh, yeah. See,
years before I was diagnosed, and so when I got diagnosed, I knew enough that I was like, oh shit.
Here we go. Right.
Right. I mean, that just, it is what it is. So
we started the chemo. Of course, it's always chemo.
So you had to start chemo again.
Yes, to try to keep it down.
Got it.
And they started to look for a donor. So here's the other thing. When I first got diagnosed, I'm one of 5 kids, right? I have 2 sisters and 2 brothers. The statistic is that each full sibling, same parents, is about a 25% chance of being a perfect match. So I'm like, Jim is 25, Kathy's
Yeah,
25,
right.
Scott's
Somebody's
25,
gonna
Julie's
make it.
25. I said, I get 100 right here.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I can count. Not one of those jerks was a match for me, which did lead to a lot of questions about when I was adopted. But
Yeah, exactly, right?
My
you
mom
conveniently
swears.
have two brothers and two
two
sisters.
sisters,
Right.
and they're not. They don't even. The two sisters match each other actually.
They stole you from the hospital.
I know. I was like, how did I get here? So we started to look for an unrelated donor, and through Be the Match, right? Great, the most wonderful, the National Marrow Donor Program, greatest program in the world. I am exceedingly blessed because I'm a white girl, right? I am 100% Norwegian. I'm like, there's no mixing in me. So Northern Europeans are have a high propensity to be on the list. So it was almost a done deal that there would be some
There
match
would
somewhere.
be a match somewhere.
If I were Rod Carew's daughter, Michelle, when she was going through leukemia, and if I was of mixed race, it would have been really hard, as it was for Michelle.
Right.
And she didn't find a donor.
Right.
So they found a donor, and in November. And so we could have done all the workup. She was ready to go, and they were saying, let's do it in December. Well, the last December had been so heinous from that terrible chemo.
Right.
I was like, look, I need a Christmas with my family.
Yeah.
I need them to see me, to be here, I don't know what's going to happen.
So I was going to say, so in the back of your mind, were you thinking like, let's do this Christmas right? Because I may not be here next year.
Yeah, I was.
Yeah.
I mean, I was
get that.
deadly sick with the chemo, not as bad as the first transplant chemo, but I had the chemo. You know, there was a lot of restrictions on what we could do, but I was like, I can't do this to my mom.
Yeah.
You know, we need to have a Christmas.
Right.
So he said, okay, but you're going to have to do 2 more rounds of the chemo. I'm like, okay, I don't care. So, so we get back into City of Hope in January. And it was the bravest thing I've ever done, was walk back into the hospital, having just left there 11 months before.
Right.
And knowing how bad it was going to be.
Yeah, and you know, and there's something to be said about that too, like walking in and you feel that, like, even if you are confident and you go, okay, I just got to do what I got to do, there's still that little trigger. Like, I have the chills thinking about it right now when I walk into just see my oncologist for follow-up every 6 months, and I hear the chemo, you know, when the bag is empty and the beeping.
Yes.
Like, that triggers me. Or I smell
Yes.
alcohol from having my port, right?
Yes.
If I smell rubbing alcohol, I I have the chills talking about it.
Or certain, like, the hand soap that they
Yes.
use at Kaiser.
Oh, yeah.
Creeps me out.
Yeah.
Makes me a little nauseous.
So,
Wow.
so you
Like
get
PTSD.
through, it is PTSD
Yeah.
for sure. So I want to get to your book before we
Okay.
have to close.
I know, 'cause we're just talking
I know,
it up.
but we'll have you back because we could talk forever. But how, your perspective, your attitude is one of gratitude and joy in spite of it all. And that's what drew me to you. And I think that's why Evelyn said, you got to meet my friend because you guys are going to get along great, because we've both been to death's door.
Yeah.
You more times than me. Thank you for taking that. Go big or go home, girl. Yeah, you one-upper you. No, you can keep those trips. But fast forward to where you're at now. What have those diagnoses taught you, those experiences of going to death's door? Like, what is the biggest lesson or lessons out of that?
Well, I first need to say that there have been a lot of hard experiences, losing babies.
Right.
A date rape, you know, my house, my whole neighborhood burning down.
Right.
A lot of hard stuff along the way. And I'm blessed because I'm naturally optimistic and sunshiny. And so I would really work hard in all of those instances to focus on the fact that there's still blessings in my life, and that I might be able to help somebody else, you know, handle whatever they've been,
Give
the
them
card
some
they've been
perspective.
dealt.
And,
Yeah. So after the cancer stuff, it just really like solidified for me that if you can, so my logo, as you can see on the book, it's like a beautiful rainbow beach umbrella. And the purpose of that is it's to represent, if you can work on your attitude, if you can work on positivity, if you can put effort into relationships and gratitude and all these things.
Finding the good,
always looking at the blessings, right? When I first you asked how I handled the diagnosis.
Right.
I said to myself, literally that day in the hospital, well, I guess it could be worse. I mean, other people get cancers that they don't even really have a treatment for. So, I mean, it could always be worse. That doesn't mean that it's not hard.
Right.
But that umbrella of having a positive outlook, working for it, it's not given. You can improve your outlook.
Happiness is a choice.
It is. And it's how you work hard and how you think and how you approach and how you live life and how you share joy. That umbrella protects you from all of the hard stuff. And so my approach was, if there's anything I can do to help anyone else, just like you, Carrie, with the CARE Project, if there's anything that this experience can do to make me able to help someone else, whether it's just praying with them. I mean, when I was bald, people would come up to me and say, oh my God, my sister's in treatment, and we would cry and pray together, whatever it is.
Right.
That gives meaning to that struggle. Yeah. And that gives meaning for me. And so that's where it all came from.
Do you feel like the other traumatic experiences you had prior to cancer helped you fight and end up in the way that you did in terms of perspective? Like, I'm overwhelmed right now, so give me a minute.
It's okay.
What I'm thinking is I've been through some things in my own life.
As we all have.
And so I feel like I'm just a natural born survivor.
Yes.
Right? And so that fight or flight, when other people might crumble and have a really difficult time emotionally, I kind of rise to the occasion. And I'm not saying that to pat myself on the back. It's the way I'm wired.
Right.
It's the way I'm wired, one, I believe. And then two, the conditioning I've had through life's experiences prior to my cancer. So it got me to a place where, in spite of it all, I could come through. And we're not saying everything's rainbows and sunshine.
No.
But we choose to find the good.
We do. And I think that for people like us, for us to be able to model it and teach it, that's what I do in my speaking and my writing. I teach it, not just that it's a concept, but here's what science has proven we can each do on the regular to build our resilience. If we invest that time, even in the busiest parts of our lives, if we invest that time in those loving, solid relationships, that's all going to come back during the hard times. And then we're going to be there for other people during the hard times. And there's healing power in helping.
There is. I say that all the time. If you listen to any of the episodes, you'll hear me say it's therapeutic for me to help. That's why I'm doing the podcast.
Right, exactly. And when you get through something as best as you can, and then you reach your hand back and you're like, grab on, I'm going to pull, I'm going to help, I'm going to pull on this end, and we're going to get you through it too. I mean,
and it's often a domino effect.
I just got the chills.
Yeah, it's a domino
because
effect.
it is a domino effect, and that's what. Here's my overall belief. These hard things that we go through, that you've gone through, Chris, you've gone through some, I've gone through some. This year is a big one.
Yeah,
we're all going through it. They're intended for us. They're intentional, because, for instance, when our house burned down, right? My parents have 5 kids. Our whole neighborhood burns down. They have to figure this out. And my mom still to this day says, I never had time to feel sorry for myself. I was so busy being grateful. People were so kind and so generous. And if you can focus on that, then it gives meaning to it, right? And you learn and you grow. And so all these things we go through are meant to be catalysts for us so that we can look at where we're at. Are we on the path we're meant to be on? If not, we can make a little pivot. We could dream a bigger dream. We can have a bigger purpose if we want. And that gives meaning to it.
There's lessons and there's inspiration in it. And it doesn't mean that everyone who's diagnosed with something like cancer has to go out and start a foundation or write a book or whatever. That's not what we're saying. For us, that's what happened.
Yes.
Right? But there's other
because we're
ways.
out there. We're extra.
We are hella extra.
I mean, you're only talking on a table that glows.
I know.
It's glowing at my skirt right now.
But they don't have to, but you're saying they don't have to start a nonprofit. No, they could be online and see somebody like this and go, hey, I've listened to this podcast, and I think that the CARE Project could really help you. Or they have this guest on named Diane. She kind of had the same thing you did. I think she'd be a good person here. Listen to this podcast.
And this is how people connect.
Yes.
And they not only connect to another human that may inspire them or encourage them or mentor them even, but this is how friendships, and I call them families, are formed, right?
Families. I love
we're
that.
families.
Yeah.
So we'll have you back for sure, because Chris might have to make this one into a 3-part series.
How long have we been talking?
I don't even know how long we've been talking.
14 hours.
But Diane has a book called Lighthearted Life. Tell us a little bit about the book and how people can get it.
So it's called Lighthearted Life, Simple Strategies to Live a Joy-Filled Life, Even in Stormy Times, which we all have. And so it was the product of the research that I've been doing for the past 7 years to create the keynote speeches, the workshops, the trainings that I do into this whole concept of positive psychology, which has been around for about 20 years now. And it's scientifically proven things. Just like if we want to improve our physical fitness, we know move a little bit, eat a little less, get your sleep on, and drink water, right? We know that, science. Well, now we're in the same place. Science knows what you need to do to improve your emotional prosperity. And so there are sections about up your love game for yourself and for others. There are sections about happiness, fitness, and how you can train yourself to be happier.
It's like a little handbook.
It's a little handbook. It's not my story. I'm not interested in writing a book about, oh, I had the cancer and then I was barfing. I mean, all the stuff I told you.
Yeah.
I don't want to write a book about that.
Yeah.
How helpful is that?
We were talking before we started recording about our new book, Handle with Care, or your support group in a book, and how it's not a novel. And that if you're getting ready to undergo chemo, you flip to that section that says chemo and hear 12 different perspectives from different, survivors. And so this is very similar to that. So it's easy to read. It's not something you have to go from cover to cover.
No, and it's
a great gift.
It's a little square book for everybody. It's it has some coloring pages in there because I'm not good at meditation because I'm always tired. So if I try to meditate, I just fall asleep.
Yeah, you're going to sleep.
But when you color, your brain and your hand is doing something, and you can think on something you just read or the podcast you're listening to. So that was my way of helping people, because chemo brain is real, and it's hard to, what's that word? It starts with the C. Concentrate and also comprehend.
Yes.
And get it to soak in. So I didn't want to write big, long tomes of information.
Right.
So it is available on Amazon.com. Okay. I don't have a Kindle version just yet because I'm so in love with the idea that there's journaling pages and there's coloring pages.
I think this is not a book for Kindle, really.
No, it's an experiential thing.
Yeah.
I'm working on my second book. You were going to ask about that, I think.
Yes, go.
It's called Journey Through Illness. It's a guidebook for a trip you never wanted to take.
Nice.
All of us are going to go on a journey through illness, whether we get some kind of a chronic illness or a life-threatening illness, or we're going to take the journey with someone we love, our mom or whomever. And so this book that's coming out in the early part of 2021, it's what to pack for a trip you never wanted to take. So you got to pack your humor. God knows.
God knows.
You got to pack your courage. You got to pack your lip. Well, you need the lip gloss.
Comfy pair of socks.
I had lip gloss always in the hospital. But and you need to pack your faith. Yeah. All of these things you need to pack. And then it'll talk about who you might meet along the way. So you and I have met actual angels, but they happen to wear scrubs, right? Yes. You'll meet fellow travelers. You'll meet amazing people doing the work of saving the lives, like with your foundation, with the Leukemia and Lymphoma Society, Be the Match, whatever it is. Then there's going to be a section, Chuck's going to help me write it, actually. It's going to be your fellow traveler's journey, your caregiver's journey, because it's not the same.
Yeah,
it's way harder, by the way.
It is harder.
Way harder.
We talk about that in another episode.
One.
Yeah, it's your plus one.
Yeah.
And there aren't a ton of resources for what that's like,
right,
and how you do it,
right,
really, and how you don't run, like we talked about earlier. And then the last section is the souvenirs. When you go on a trip, you want to buy souvenirs, right? This is a shitty trip, but you still get souvenirs.
Yeah,
you get maybe a deeper purpose, a better gratitude practice. Maybe you just feel blessed to even wake up every morning. Maybe you decide to start a foundation. Maybe you decide to quit your damn job.
Right.
What you're gonna take souvenirs.
All things are brand new,
and the scars. The scars of this journey that we've been on. There's that Japanese principle. I can't pronounce it, but it's where you break the pottery. If it breaks, you fill it with pure gold.
Yep.
Because that fixing of the scar, that creation of the scar, that fixed the breakage, is beautiful, and that story is meant to be told.
It's art.
It's art, and so you and I walk around being works of art with our scars, and
I'm a whole lot of works of art.
Me too.
Well, I'm thankful for that. We're gonna have the link to your book.
Okay.
We're gonna share more information about you. Obviously, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah,
I got nothing.
You'll
be back, and we'll bring Chuck back.
You know what? I'm totally doing that.
He'll be like some
all
dating
about
advice
it.
from Chuck.
Right.
I don't know.
We'll come over here on a Sunday, watch some football, have a few beers, jump on the microphone.
Yes, we will. I don't know if he can give men dating advice. Don't talk about love in like the fourth date. She will run.
So That's been a question that's been brought up and talked about on many episodes.
Yeah. So I think it's right in line.
Yeah,
perfect. For sure.
Yeah. How can people reach you?
I have a website. It's lightheartedlife.org.
Okay.
I have a Facebook group.
I love your group.
Thank you. It's Lighthearted Life Community. And the whole purpose of it is to have a safe, beautiful, inspiring, supportive, encouraging place in the ether on social media where it's not about politics. And I have my positions, but they don't go in there.
Right.
It's not about selling anything.
Yeah.
It's not about...
Yeah, because a lot of us get invited to a lot of groups.
And they're all about, you might be my customers.
Yeah. And when I get put in those groups, I'm like, yeah, no, I'm out.
Yeah, I invite everybody to my pages.
Well, no, I mean, that's strategic. That's what we do, right? Yeah. I mean, I do book reports on a Facebook Live, and I talk about different books that have been really meaningful and helpful to me, like the 4 Agreements and the 5 Love Languages, just things that are like
it's very encouraging and inspiring and uplifting.
That's the intent.
It's a great space to be in.
That's me right there.
Yeah, it's a great space to be in.
So, and you know, I'm available for speaking opportunities or workshops or, you know, I'm not out
joke writing. She's pretty good at that.
I can write a couple jokes. I can auctioneer your.
We've done stand-up shows together.
We have.
Yeah.
Awesome. You're hired for my next gala.
Okay, I'm ready.
COVID goes away and we're able to have them.
I'm ready. I'll do it.
Yeah.
You don't have to hire me. It's from the heart, you know.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah.
I got nothing. The
outro says everything else. You can just say goodbye.
Yeah. Thank you.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Take care.
So long.
Hey,
farewell.
And we'll get together soon to start recording our new spinoff.
I've got ideas.
Say it. Say the name.
Cancer After Dark.
Sounds dirty.
It will be.
It will be. All right,
There's a lot of issues.
We're out.
Okay, we're out.
Take
Bye.
care.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Man, I love Diane. She is so great. That was such a fun conversation to have. So thank you guys all for listening. Make sure you go to thecareprojectinc.org and check out the book, Handle with Care, that Carrie and her hive mind have put together. You can also flatter me. Go to thisisfunner.com and check out all the podcast and online content I do. And don't forget to rate, review, subscribe, and please tell your friend about the show. And we will see you next week here on Handle with Care, Breast Cancer and Beyond. Take care.
Thank you for listening to Handle with Care, Breast Cancer and Beyond. Please let us know what you think of the show by leaving a rating and review. And don't forget to share it with a friend. For more information or to connect with Carrie, go to thecareprojectinc.org.